I only thought that the affirmative one, basically, Werner, how you had too much in 2&R, that you really overstretched yourself. And I think you made an incorrect assessment of the arguments that they didn't have anything on the dissent. I think they had compelling arguments against both of the dissents. You kind of assert in the final speech that they dropped them and that they don't have answers, but I think that they do. So first is on the brain drain argument. You kind of realize there's no link here in the process of the 2 and C. And I don't think we come up with one later on.
I thought they considered that parents are the ones who bring the children back to the US. So I decided to go for brain drain because the parents are the parents who worked in the country brought the children to the US, and therefore the parents' jobs switch.
Right. Well, I think the link that you need to be going for here is that deportation is what prevents the brain drain, right? The link to this brain drain is the affirmative claim that without the DREAM Act being passed, there will be a bunch of deportations. They're basically saying those deportations are good because Africa needs doctors more than the United States does, right? That's the link that makes sense to me. I didn't really understand that argument you're making about doctors right now. I thought I didn't really like. So I don't know. Does that make sense? And then on the gas tax dissent, your only answer to the claim that the DREAM Act is bipartisan is that your evidence is newer. Okay.
Yeah, but shouldn't that be the?
Well, only if we make the argument that something has happened since their evidence was written that would make it now invalid. So you have to say that their evidence is old, but then you have to point out what's changed since their evidence has been written that makes it no longer apply. Because otherwise, the reasons why the DREAM Act are bipartisan, I have to assume are still valid, right? The evidence simply being old does not invalidate it unless you prove that something has happened since the evidence was written that changes what it says. But we don't say anything like that. And so the affirmative wins that the DREAM Act is bipartisan, and so it doesn't fracture the Democrats to pass it. Your link evidence, which you extend and describe, says that what causes the divisions within the Democratic Party are sort of the lack of comprehensiveness or something like that. But that doesn't, that's not explained enough to me that doesn't respond to this claim that they have that the DREAM Act is bipartisan. So basically, my advice for you is to do a couple of things differently in the 2&R. One, we should pick one argument, and we should orient the whole 2&R around it. And then the other thing that I think is really important is beginning the speech and putting the impact calculus arguments in one place at the top. I don't think it's I think it's confusing to me and it's hard to follow when we go for just the 2 dissents, and then it's kind of like you're giving 2 totally different speeches sandwiched together. There's a speech where you've got the gas tax, and you talk about it, and then you go to the back, you go to the other dissent, and then we go back to the first dissent to do impact calculus, and then we go to the other dissent to do impact calculus again. So it's confusing, and it enables 2AR to pick the core arguments that take out your dissent. So I thought that we should have condensed down to one argument and really explained the link to the one dissent that we wanted to go for and focused on that. And then I never understood what the purpose of the fast growth bad arguments were. I didn't, so.
Because they argue for fast growth. It was impact rates.
Sort of. This was not. Is this a third dissent that we're reading against this one? Like, it's never clear to me. Like, you just read a bunch of cards that say economic.
Impact terms.
Okay, impact turn to which part of, like, to what?
Their economic advantage.
They don't really have an economic advantage. They have an advantage about healthcare discrimination. I guess they have that GDP advantage or whatever, but we're reading these cards on, like, you read them on the gas tax dissent in the 2 and C, like, is the answer to the 2AC number 2.
Yeah, because they said that when DREAM immigrants come to the US, they're going to improve the economy, and they're going to somehow use the money earn from the economy on improving infrastructure.
Okay, well then we need to put those arguments on the case in the 1AC, not put them on the dissent in the 2AC to answer a different argument. Because otherwise it's not clear that this is the impact term to that part of the advantage. Right? As I said, this is the general.
No, it's like the answer to their line by, it's like line by line plus impact term.
Sorry, what do you mean? No. Let's say the general point is there's too much going on, that it's confusing, and there's not a clearly articulated ballot for the negative at the beginning of the 2NR. Whereas I think there is a clearly articulated ballot for the affirmative at the beginning of the 2AR, which is that they have these two strong takeouts to both of your positions. That said, I thought that the 2AR, the last minute of it was very repetitive and not very helpful. And sort of what you described as impact calculus is not quite what I would describe as impact calculus. So you just kind of repeated the arguments or something like that. But what I would call impact calculus is what you were gesturing towards at the beginning. LGBT discrimination outweighs whatever the impact to brain drain is, outweighs diseases in public health in Africa because it's systemic, it's ongoing, we know it's happening, versus or something like that. Like we have to, another way to think about this is impact calculus should assume that both sides win their arguments and then explain why the arguments that you win are still important.